He's 32, pulling in about $70,000 a year, working some spreadsheet-heavy job, and honestly, he's feeling completely burned out by the savings grind. You know the exact feeling, right? Today, we're looking at a magical number that changes absolutely everything for him. But right now, Alan is just trying to keep his head above water.
So Alan has actually done everything right for 6 solid years. Every single paycheck, he's diligently poured a chunk of his hard-earned cash straight into, well, boring index funds. And after all that sacrifice, we're talking skipped dinners, delayed vacations, his account finally just crossed $48,000.
Doing the math one night, probably after his third beer, Alan realizes something incredibly depressing. At this agonizingly slow rate, he's going to hit $1 million right around the time he turns 78. He's literally contemplating throwing his laptop straight into the ocean. But here's the kicker. Alan has no idea about the absolute magic waiting for him exactly 11 years and 4 months down the road.
Section 1. The math of compounding. Pushing the boulder. Fast forward a bit. As Alan hits $187,000 by age 38, he finally gets why the beginning was just so painful. The late, great Charlie Munger famously said that the first $100,000 is it's a beast, but you have to do whatever it takes to get your hands on it. Why does it feel so impossible? Because it's like pushing a giant boulder full of your own savings up a steep hill entirely by yourself. You're doing literally 100% of the heavy lifting. And the market, it's barely giving you a nudge. But think about the incredible time compression here. If you're putting away $1,000 a month at an 8% return, getting from zero to your first $100,000 takes about 7.3 years. But consider what happens later. Leaping from $500,000 to a full $1 million takes almost the exact same amount of time, just 7 years. Think about that. The final stretch of your first million takes about as long as scraping together that very first 10%. That right there, that is compounding finally showing up to work. Section 2. The crossover point, when your money out-earns you.
Now here is the absolute game changer. If you have $500,000 invested in an S&P 500 index fund and it's earning its historical 10% average, your capital is generating roughly $50,000 a year on autopilot. Compare that to the median personal income in the US, which sits right around $42,000. Do you see what just happened? Your money is officially out-earning the median American, and it's doing it without sitting through a single miserable PowerPoint meeting.
Economists actually have a name for this. It's called the crossover point, and it is mathematically the most important milestone in your financial life. Up until this point, you were the engine of your wealth. But after $500,000, the engine switches drivers. You are no longer the engine. Your primary job fundamentally shifts from building the machine to protecting it. Section 3. Defeating the silent killers. Protecting the machine.
Now, before Alan even reaches this incredible milestone, there are silent killers coming for his money, and we need to expose them right now. Just listen to this brutal math. We're talking about a 1% financial advisor fee. Sure, 1% sounds completely harmless, right? Well, actually, it's a crime scene. If you invest $500,000 at 8% for 30 years with no fees, you'd have $5.03 million. Add in that tiny 1% fee, you end up with $3.81 million. That innocent little fee quietly steals $1.22 million from your future self. And for what? The privilege of a quarterly statement and one annual phone call? No way.
John Bogle, the legendary inventor of the index fund, really hit the nail on the head here. He said the miracle of compounding returns is overwhelmed by the tyranny of compounding costs. When you hit $500,000, you absolutely do not need an advisor taking a toll at the gate. You just need a broad index fund, a simple rebalancing calendar, and the sheer, unadulterated discipline to just leave your account alone. Alongside those nasty fees, you absolutely have to avoid concentration risk. A shocking number of people keep 30 to 50% of their wealth tied up in a single stock, usually their employer. You have to ensure no single stock wipes out your wealth. I mean, remember the tragic stories of Enron in 2001 or Lehman Brothers in 2008? A lot of those employees had 500 grand too, but they made one enormous bet on a single company and lost the whole shebang. So, rule of thumb, limit any single stock to 5 to 10% of your portfolio max. Section 4. The new keys to freedom. Options at $500,000. All right, let's fast forward a bit. Alan is now 43. He just crossed the $500,000 mark, and boom, his passive growth is suddenly doing 75% as much financial work as his actual day job. And these aren't just digits on a screen anymore. They are literal keys to freedom. They give Alan massive leverage. Option 1. Coast fire. He could completely stop saving, let the portfolio just coast to $2.7 million by age 65, and take a lower paying job he actually loves, or even demand a 3-day work week. Option 2 is geographic arbitrage. Sure, $500K in Manhattan is pretty tight, but move to Portugal on a D7 visa, it behaves like a massive fortune. Option 3 is access to better private wealth services that only open up once you hit $500,000. Before this point, all of these were just daydreams. Now, they are real choices. Section 5. Surviving the danger zone. How ego ruins wealth.
Here's the crazy thing. Hitting $500,000 isn't actually the hardest part. Avoiding self-sabotage when you suddenly feel rich, that is where most people completely fall apart. The second someone crosses this threshold, their brain starts rationalizing upgrades. Hey, I've been super disciplined for 15 years. I totally deserve the nicer car. But listen to this. If you rationalize lifestyle creep, say bumping your spending from $50K to $75K a year, you instantly push your total retirement goal from $1.25 million all the way up to $1.875 million. By upgrading your lifestyle, you literally just forced yourself to save an additional $600,000.
Morgan Housel perfectly identifies the root of this danger. He points out that saving is simply the gap between your ego and your income. And let me tell you, a louder ego at $500,000 is infinitely more dangerous than at $50,000. A little lifestyle creep early on, maybe it's just an extra streaming subscription, no big deal. But at $500,000, it looks like a $900 a month car lease that pushes your ultimate freedom back by 8 whole years. Ouch.
And then there's the behavior gap. Consider the data from 2024. The S&P 500 delivered over 25%, but the average equity investor, they only captured 16.5%. Why? Because the dollars are bigger now, so things like panic selling during a crash or getting bored and gambling on crypto carry a massive penalty. A 1% emotional mistake at 50 grand cost you $500. Not great, but survivable. But at $500,000, that exact same emotional mistake silently steals thousands, and eventually hundreds of thousands, from your future.
Okay, time for a reality check. I really don't want you walking away thinking 500 grand means you are suddenly Elon Musk. At a standard 4% safe withdrawal rate, $500,000 only generates about $20,000 a year in sustainable income. That means this milestone is a solid foundation, not the finish line, especially once you factor in the taxes you'll owe on those traditional 401k withdrawals, which shrinks your actual spendable cash even more. You're prepared, for sure, but you are not done. Section 6. Building versus custodian, the final tally at age 60.
So, 17 years after crossing that magical threshold, let's check back in on Alan at age 60. Now, to give you some perspective, Alan and his coworker George were essentially identical back at age 43. They had the exact same income, the exact same portfolio size, and the exact same opportunity. They basically stood shoulder to shoulder at the $500,000 starting line of the maintenance phase. But wow, consider the staggering difference at age 60. Alan is sitting pretty on $2.41 million. Why? Because he fired his expensive advisor, completely avoided lifestyle creep, and kept stubbornly buying through every single market crash. His money did 13 times more work than he did. George, on the other hand, well, George bought a lake house, kept paying that 1% advisor fee, and panic sold twice. He's now sitting on $940,000. That massive gap wasn't about intelligence or luck. It was entirely decided by how they behaved as custodians of their wealth in those crucial years after hitting the milestone. The first half of the journey is all about building the engine. It's a grueling, lonely, uphill climb.